Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Now today's video is going to be a bit different to usual, as I'm not going to be showing you any coins of my own, doing any unboxings, or telling you the history of a certain denomination. In today's video I'll be reading you a poem. My personal favourite poem. It's a great poem, I must say. Now this is a poem by Joseph Addison. You may have heard of him. It is a poem called Adventures of a Shilling, and it is from 1710, so it's over 300 years old. Now I will not just sit here and talk to you the whole time, or rather I will, but I will overlay onto this video pictures and video clips of things relating to what is going on in the poem, and hopefully make this a bit more of an adventure for you of your own, to adventure through the adventures of a shilling. So let's begin. Now this is a brilliant poem, and for those of you that like the history side of coins, then it'll be really, I think, a good poem that you'll enjoy. If you're more of a decimal collector, then perhaps not, but for those fans of old coins, especially shillings, it will be very nice. Anyway, enough of me talking now. I will begin the poem. Now this is a poem written in the voice of a shilling, so the narrator here will be, in this case me, as if I were a shilling. To begin with, not though, as we'll find out. So let's go. I was born, says he, on the side of a mountain, near a little village of Peru, and made a voyage to England in an ingot under the convoy of Sir Francis Drake. I was soon after my arrival taken and refined with modern methods, and stamped with the face of Queen Elizabeth on one side, and the arms of the country on the other. Being thus equipped, I found me a wonderful inclination to ramble and visit all parts of the new world into which I was brought. The people very much favoured my natural disposition, and shifted me so fast from hand to hand, that before I was 5 years old, I had travelled into almost every corner of the nation. But in the beginning of my 6th year, to my unspeakable grief, I fell into the hands of a miserable old fellow, who clapped me into an old iron chest, where I found 500 more of my own quality, who lay under the same confinement. The only relief we had was to be taken out and counted in the morning and the evening of each day. After an imprisonment of several years, we heard somebody knocking at our chest and breaking it open with a hammer. This we found was the old man's heir, who, as his father lay dying, was good enough to come and rescue us and get us our release. He separated us that very day. What was the fate of my companions, I will never know. But to me, I was given to the apothecary shop for a pint of sack. The apothecary gave me to a herb woman, the herb woman to a butcher, the butcher to a brewer, and the brewer to his wife, who made a present of me to a nonconformist preacher. After this manner, I made my way merrily through the world, for, as I told you before, we shillings love nothing more than to travel. Now I sometimes fetched in a shoulder of mutton, sometimes a playbook, and often had the satisfaction to treat a Templar at 12 penny ordinary, or carry him with 3 friends to Westminster Hall. In the midst of this pleasant progress which I made from place to place, I was arrested by a superstitious old woman, who shut me up in a greasy purse, in pursuance of a foolish saying, that while she kept a Queen Elizabeth shilling about her, she would never be without money. I continued here a close prisoner for many months, till at last I was exchanged for 48 farthings. I thus rambled from pocket to pocket till the beginning of the civil wars, when, to my shame be it spoken, I was employed in raising soldiers against the king. For being of a very tempting breadth, a sergeant made use of me to inveigle country fellows and list them into service of the Parliament. As soon as he had made one man sure, his way was to oblige him to take a shilling of a more homely figure, and then practise the same trick upon another. Thus I continued doing great mischief to the crown, till my officer, chancing one morning to walk abroad earlier than ordinary, sacrificed me to his pleasures, and made use of me to bestow me on a milkmaid. This wretch bent me, and gave her to her sweetheart, applying more properly than she intended the usual form of, to my love and from my love. This ungenerous gallant, marrying her within a few days after, pawned me for a dram of brandy, and drinking me out next day, I was beaten flat with a hammer, and was again set running. After many adventures, to which it would be tedious to relate, I was sent to a young spendthrift, in company with the will of his deceased father. The young fellow, who I found was very extravagant, gave great demonstrations of joy at the receiving of the will, but opening it, he found himself disheartened and cut off from the possession of fair estate, By virtue of my being made a present to him, this put him in such a passion that after having taken me in his hand and cursed me, he threw me away, and I landed in an unfrequented place under a dead wall, where I lay undiscovered and useless during the usurpation of Oliver Cromwell. About a year after the king's return, a poor cavalier that was walking there about dinner time fortunately cast his eye upon me, and, to the great joy of us both, carried me to a cook shop, where he dined upon me and drank the king's health. When I had come again into the world, I found that I had been happier in my retirement than I thought, having probably by that means escaped wearing a monstrous pair of breeches. Being now of great credit and antiquity, I was rather looked upon as a medal than an ordinary coin, for which reason a gamester laid hold of me and converted me to a counter. I had at length the good luck to see my master break, by which means I was again sent abroad under my primitive denomination of a shilling. I shall pass over many other accidents of less moment, and hasten to that fatal catastrophe, when I fell into the hands of an artist, who conveyed me under the ground, and, with an unmerciful pair of shears, cut off my titles, clipped my brims, retrenched my shape, rubbed me to my innermost ring, and, in short, so spoiled and pillaged me, that he did not leave me worth a groat. You may think what a confusion I was in to see myself thus, curtailed and disfigured. I should have been ashamed to have shown my head, had not at all my old acquaintance been reduced to the same shameful figure, expecting some few that were punched through the belly in the midst of this general calamity, when everybody thought our misfortune irrevertible, and in our case desperate. We were thrown into the furnace together, and, as it often happens with cities rising out of a fire, appeared with a greater beauty and lustre than we could ever boast before. What happened to me after this change you will now see. I shall take some other opportunity to relate. In the meantime I shall only repeat two adventures, as being very extraordinary, and neither of them having ever happened to me before. The first was my being in a poet's pocket, who was so taken with the brightness and novelty of my appearance that it gave occasion to the finest burlesque poem in the British language, entitled From Me the Splendid Shilling. The second adventure, which I must not omit, happened to me in the year 1703. I was given away in charity to a blind man, but indeed this was by mistake, the person who gave me having heedlessly thrown me into the hat among a pennyworth of farthings. So there we go. There is the poem by Joseph Addison, The Adventures of a Shilling, and it captures just a sort of moment of one specific denomination between sort of 1550 or so up to 1710. Of course, the shilling being first just a circulating coin of Elizabeth I for this story, having lots of adventures and transactions, then eventually being melted down into a coin of Queen Anne. So there we go. Now that is a great poem in my opinion. Now the English is a bit old, of course, over 300-year-old English, so there are some parts in there that aren't quite as easy to understand, but I hope you did understand, and hopefully the pictures, having not edited it yet, I hope I can find some relevant pictures and video clips to overlay to bring about more meaning to this poem. A great poem indeed, and it really captures the beauty of a coin. Not just the beauty, but the history that goes through, that you heard in this poem, all the wonderful experiences that the coin went through. And this poem, of course, is about a coin that could talk, and would it not be wonderful if your coins could talk and tell you where they've been all these years and what they've been up to, and recount all their adventures. Of course, all coins of a certain age went through and experienced and were there during some amazing history, and it'd be great to know those stories, and that poem there offers a glimpse at a potential story just for one small coin from the time of Elizabeth I to Queen Anne. So there we go. A very, very different video to usual. Not sure if it will do well in YouTube land with the algorithm, all things, but hopefully if you have enjoyed it and you're still here, then you can be nice enough to leave a like and subscribe, and of course comment down below if you enjoyed this poem. So a very different video. Like I say, I hope you've enjoyed, and of course thank you very much for watching to the end if you have done. Quite a long video, and I thank you for sticking with me, but I personally, even if the video doesn't do as well, very much enjoyed reading that lovely poem. So there we go. See you next time on Bits and Bobs.